The scene is often quiet. Sometimes it unfolds in a hospital bed, other times at home, surrounded by loved ones or in solitude. The body becomes still. The heart comes to a stop. The breath, which for a lifetime flowed freely and without consent, releases one final exhale. But what many don't realize is that at that exact moment, something is still happening. Something deep and invisible to physical eyes. The soul, that core of consciousness that inhabits the body throughout life, begins its process of detachment. It's not something abrupt like flipping a switch. It's more like the untying of an old knot intertwined with years of experiences, emotions, memories, and choices. At this moment, near-death experiences help shed some light on what takes place. People who were declared clinically dead for a few minutes describe common sensations: a sudden lightness, an unexpected peace, and a clear feeling of detaching from the body. Some report seeing their own body from above as if they were floating on the ceiling. Others hear voices around them but can't interact. Consciousness remains alive, awake, but separated from the physical vehicle. The separation of the soul and body is also an energetic process. Spiritual tradition teaches that we are connected to the body by cords called by some traditions the silver cord. This cord, which unites the physical body to the spiritual body, becomes thinner until it breaks, marking the definitive end of the connection with matter. But not every soul detaches easily. In cases of sudden traumatic deaths or in people very attached to material life, the detachment can be confusing and even painful. There is a shock. The soul sometimes tries to remain there, not understanding why no one responds, why its cries are ignored. It's like waking from a vivid dream and realizing you're no longer in the same place. From an emotional point of view, the impact is profound. Imagine someone who lived an entire life believing death was the end and suddenly finds themselves conscious, floating above their own body, hearing weeping, feeling vibrations, but unable to interact. It's the beginning of a new cycle, but still without a map, without direction. For those more spiritually prepared, this moment is one of acceptance. The soul understands what is happening. It feels the presence of guides, spiritual friends, beings of light who come to support it. There is a gentle, almost maternal welcoming, a hand extended from the other side. Everything begins with the last breath. But the true end, contrary to what many think, is just a new beginning. The soul is freed, yes, but it carries everything that was lived, the joys, the pains, the lessons. It leaves the body, but it does not leave empty. What happens after that is what we will begin to explore from here. Imagine waking up in a familiar place, but everything feels strange. The colors seem different. The sound feels like it's coming from both inside and outside at the same time, and the people around you act as if you're not there. You scream, try to touch them, but nothing happens. It's like being present and invisible at the same time. For many souls, this is how awakening in the subtle plane begins. Right after the detachment from the physical body, consciousness does not fade. On the contrary, it remains sometimes more lucid than ever. The problem is the soul doesn't always know it has died, and this creates deep confusion. It realizes something is different but doesn't quite understand what. This disorientation happens because the soul still carries remnants of physical life. It recognizes itself as the same self as before. The same thoughts, fears, the same memories. That's why it often tries to continue its routine. Go home, talk to its children, fulfill pending tasks. But nothing responds to its touch anymore. Doors don't open, words aren't heard, people don't react. And this generates an intense feeling of isolation and anguish. Some souls may remain for days or weeks wandering around their bodies, especially when death occurs suddenly. Accidents, heart attacks, or worse. The shock is so great that the spirit needs time to understand the new reality. It's like waking from a coma, but with no one around to explain where you are or what happened. Some spiritual traditions, such as Spiritism, teach that this period right after death can be crucial for the soul's future. If it is too attached to matter, to suffering, or to some unfinished mission, it may remain stuck for a while in what they call the lower plane or earth crust, a state between worlds where it still feels the weight of human emotions but without a body to act on them. At this moment, what makes a difference are spiritual connections. If the soul cultivated a life of self-awareness, faith, or good deeds, it tends to be assisted quickly. Spiritual guides appear. Beings of light draw near and help with the transition. But if the soul lived disconnected from these ties, the process may be slower, more solitary. Even so, it is never abandoned. It might just take a bit longer to perceive the signs. Interestingly, some people in terminal states report seeing already deceased loved ones in their final days. These visits, which to many seem like hallucinations, may actually be the soul's first contacts with the subtle plane, a kind of pre-awakening in which it begins to feel the call from the other side. It is also common in the first hours after death for the soul to follow what is happening with its body, the movement of paramedics, the weeping of family members, the arrival of friends. All of this contributes to this phase of confusion. The soul sees everything, feels everything, but is no longer part of the world in the same way it once was. And this break in reality is often hard to accept. The earthly clock continues ticking, but on the other side, time takes on another form. Still, for many spiritual traditions, from Kardec's Spiritism to Tibetan Buddhism, including esoteric currents of Hinduism, the first 7 days form a passage arc, an energetic corridor in which the soul remains very close to material reality right after the initial shock of realizing it is outside the body. The soul tends to seek familiar references. Some spirits choose to stay there at the bedside or in the hospital room, watching doctors fill out forms, nurses tending to equipment. Others follow their family members, hovering above cars en route to the funeral, temples, or cemeteries. They are no longer in a hurry, but carry an inner urgency. They need to understand what has just happened to themselves and at the same time want to ensure that those they love will be okay. In this symbolic interval, the wake takes on double importance. For the living, it's a chance to say goodbye, share memories, offer mutual comfort. For the soul, it's the last opportunity to witness almost from the front row the impact of their departure. Every tear noticed, every word of gratitude, every smile interrupted by longing shapes the departed's understanding of the legacy they left behind. It is not uncommon for mediums or more sensitive people to describe feeling a gentle breeze, a chill on the neck, or a sweet presence moving among the flower wreaths. These are signs that the soul is there, feeling its way through this human ritual it belonged to until yesterday. It perceives aromas, hears conversations, sees photographs displayed on the casket. All of this helps to weave together the understanding that its earthly cycle has ended, a necessary step to allow itself to move forward. During these 7 days, the soul still vibrates at a frequency very close to matter. That's why the emotions of the living act like air currents. They can gently push it toward the more luminous dimensions, or keep it stuck to the dense crust of resentments. Harsh cries of despair and phrases of denial, I can't live without you. Project waves that bind, confuse, and delay the release. Sincere prayers, loving memories, and serene acceptance act like small torches lighting the road. Many cultures mark the 7th day with masses, services, incense-burning rituals, or simple gatherings to share stories. Spiritually, this is said to be a magnetic closure. The energetic residues still tying the soul to its former dwelling begin to dissolve. If the soul was able to accept death, felt support, and understood its new condition, its vibration rises and a portal described as a tunnel of light, a silver bridge, or a blue mist gate opens, inviting it to move forward. But the process is not mathematical. There are accounts of spirits who pass through this stage within a few hours, and others who, overwhelmed by attachment, linger for months. This 7 functions less as a strict deadline and more as an archetype. It evokes the universal idea of a complete cycle, like the phases of the moon or the musical scale. Once this cycle is fulfilled, the soul has the minimum conditions to distance itself from the dense frequency of Earth and enter more subtle transitional zones. For those who remain, knowing that their loved one can still perceive their vibrations changes how they experience grief. Transforming pain into gratitude, telling stories that celebrate achievements, praying, or simply mentally sending love contributes tangibly to the peace of the departed. For those reflecting on their own finitude, understanding this 7-day corridor inspires living with fewer emotional loose ends, cultivating forgiveness, building bridges instead of walls, all of which will ease their own transition when the time comes. After the first 7 days, marked by the soul's strong presence near the physical plane, a quieter but equally profound stage begins, the 40 days of farewell. It is during this period that the soul truly starts to detach from the ties of material life and dives into a process that combines review, healing, and liberation. This idea of 40 days appears in various traditions. In Christianity, for example, Jesus is said to have remained among the living for 40 days after the resurrection before ascending to heaven. In Spiritism, this cycle is seen as a time of energetic purification. In Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardao, the interval between one life and another, can also last this long. It's no coincidence. The number 40 carries a universal symbolism of transformation and transition. During these 40 days, the soul undergoes a process similar to opening an old book and leaving through every page of the life just left behind. The goal is not external judgment. No one appears with a gavel or a scale to declare whether it was good or bad. It's more of an internal review. The soul reels its choices, its feelings, the intentions behind each action. But here, there's a crucial difference. It feels what it caused in others. If it hurt someone in life, it now reels that moment from the perspective of the one who suffered. If it loved, it feels that love again with all the emotion it stirred in the other. This is one of the most impactful processes of the afterlife, to deeply understand the effect of one's own actions, good or bad, as if finally seeing the echo left in every heart touched. At this stage, it is common for the soul to be accompanied by beings of light known in many paths as spiritual mentors. They are not there to accuse or applaud, but to help. They show alternative paths that could have been chosen. Help the soul understand why certain sufferings occurred, and most importantly, to learn from them. There is no changing the past, but much can be learned from it. And that learning is the key to true detachment from guilt, from resentment, from the idealizations that still tie the soul to its previous existence. During these 40 days, the soul's ties to material bonds, home, objects, career, addictions, people begin to loosen. This doesn't mean it forgets those it loved. On the contrary, it recognizes those bonds in their purest form, free from the ego's illusions and the small grievances that so often distort love on earth. But to move forward, letting go is necessary. Many spirits at this point suffer upon seeing family members clinging to them, inconsolable, trying to hold on to them energetically through constant thoughts of pain. Promises never to forget, vows not to move on. The soul feels this, and as much love as may be there, this kind of attachment weighs like chains on the feet of someone who needs to walk. It is also during this time that dreams with the deceased become more intense. The soul may approach loved ones to give signs, messages, or simply one last glance. The dreams feel vivid, real, full of emotion, and often they are in fact encounters. A way for the soul to close chapters, soothe hearts, and ask for permission to depart. At the end of the 40 days, a kind of final energetic release occurs. The soul, now lighter, more conscious of its journey, feels ready to enter more subtle dimensions. It says goodbye to earth, but carries with it the true bonds, the loves that don't depend on physical presence, the lessons and the essence of what it truly was. For the living, this moment can be felt in unexpected ways. A sudden peace in the chest, a sense that now they're really at peace, or even symbolic events like a scent in the air, a specific song playing at an unusual time, or a butterfly landing in an unlikely spot. Small subtleties that mark the beginning of the true departure. One of the most surprising discoveries for many people is realizing that even after the death of the physical body, the connection between the one who departed and those who remain continues to be active and deeply influential in this delicate period, especially during the first few months after disincarnation. The emotions of the living strongly echo in the spiritual journey of the soul. It may seem like an exaggeration at first, but think of it this way. When we're alive and emotionally connected to someone, we can sense when that person is unwell, even without a word being spoken. Now imagine that connection without the filter of the physical body, without the barrier of the common senses. That's exactly what happens in the spiritual plane. Emotions become direct, energetic waves that reach the soul with pure intensity. As mentioned before, grief is natural. The pain of loss, the crying, the longing, all of it is part of the human process of saying goodbye. But the problem begins when that love turns into desperate attachment, when the person left behind insists, consciously or unconsciously, on keeping the deceased tied to their pain. Phrases like, "I can't live without you, why did you leave me?" or "come back to me" carry such intense emotional weight that they act like spiritual chains. The soul, which has already begun its journey, feels that bond being pulled back, and often out of love it returns. It stays nearby, tries to comfort, tries to explain itself. But in doing so, it also ends up confused, delaying its own path. There are accounts of spirits who remain bound for months, even years, around their loved ones, not out of malice, but because they feel responsible. They feel they cannot leave while those they love are still in emotional collapse. And this can cause mutual suffering. The soul cannot rise and the living cannot heal. This doesn't mean forgetting, quite the opposite. It means honoring the presence that person had in your life without tying their memory to pain. True love never dissolves, it just changes form. And when the soul finally feels free to move on, it can also visit you, inspire you, calm you, because now there's space for that. There comes a moment after the process of detachment and life review when the soul finds itself before a choice, or in some cases an irresistible calling. It's the moment when spiritual portals open, inviting the newly freed consciousness to move forward on its journey. But where does it go? Is there a fixed destination, a heaven and a hell, a resting colony, a new world? The answer is less rigid than older doctrines used to portray, but infinitely richer. The soul's destination is not a physical place, but a vibrational reflection of what it built internally throughout its existence. Spiritual portals are in essence passages of frequency. Some souls enter this new plane guided by spiritual beings. Others feel like an inner beacon, the call to move forward. There are also those who, even free from the body, remain confused or stuck, unable to access any portal, usually due to dense emotions like guilt, fear, revenge, or extreme attachment. These portals can lead to many different destinations. One of the most well-known descriptions of these destinations comes from the spiritist literature of Chico Xavier's works. In books like Nosar, Psychographed by the Spirit André Louise, true spiritual colonies are portrayed: organized cities with buildings, hospitals, libraries, gardens, schools, and study centers where spirits go through phases of healing, learning, and preparation for new experiences. Various mediums from different countries report similar experiences. These are high vibrational environments accessible to souls who, even with imperfections, lived with dignity, ethics, and a desire to grow. In them, the soul is welcomed, treated, and gradually reconnected with its deeper spiritual essence. Outside the colonies, there are what are generically called astral planes. These levels of existence do not have fixed divisions, but vibrational layers. The higher the soul's frequency, the more luminous these planes are. Their time flows differently. Matter is more malleable. Thoughts create realities, and the experiences are intensely symbolic. In denser planes, on the other hand, there are zones of confusion, suffering, and emotional entrapment. Some call it the threshold, others the valley of shadows. Many believe it to be punishment, but it is more a direct reflection of unresolved mind and emotions. Not every soul goes directly to a colony or specific plane. Many pass through transition zones, places for observation, waiting, or initial treatment. Think of it like a triage room in a hospital where the soul is received by mentors, undergoes vibrational assessments, and prepares for its next destination. It's in these spaces that many are reunited with already deceased family members, old spiritual guides, or even entities who accompanied their lives without them ever noticing. After all, does the soul choose where it goes? Yes and no. The soul doesn't decide as if choosing a hotel from a catalog, but is drawn to where its vibration leads. However, souls with greater spiritual awareness who worked inwardly during life have more clarity at the moment of transition. They sense the portals opening, perceive the invitations, and recognize the paths. This clarity allows them to choose more freely and for their journey to continue with less resistance. After passing through the spiritual portals and arriving at its vibrational destination, the soul enters a new stage, the phase of spiritual treatment and re-education. It's here that it begins to deeply understand everything it lived, everything it felt, and everything it still needs to evolve. But above all, this is where it finds healing. Because yes, the soul also carries wounds. Even free from the physical body, it may carry emotional pain, old traumas, deep regrets, burdens that weren't resolved through death. And contrary to what many think, disincarnating is not erasing everything and starting over from zero, because consciousness continues to be itself. One of the soul's first experiences in subtle worlds is the welcome into spaces dedicated to energetic and emotional healing. In many traditions, these places are described as luminous, silent rooms where specialized entities act with love and wisdom. There the soul rests literally. There are spirits who sleep for days, weeks, or even earthly months. A deep restorative sleep necessary to reorganize their energetic structure. It's a decompression period, like someone surfacing from a deep dive who needs to rise gradually to avoid collapsing from the pressure change. Others undergo more active treatments. They receive magnetic passes, are enveloped in subtle vibrations, or participate in listening and clarification sessions with spiritual mentors. All of this with a single goal: to restore the being's balance. After the rest phase, the soul is invited to expand its consciousness. And this happens through learning, not theoretical cold knowledge, but a living and applied wisdom. There are schools in the subtle planes. Yes, schools. But here the teaching is different. Learning doesn't come only from books, but from experiences, vibrational simulations, and sharing between spirits of different levels. The soul revisits past mistakes, but now with clarity. It understands the impact of emotions. It learns about universal laws like cause and effect, vibration, tuning, universal love, and perhaps most importantly, it begins to understand who it is beyond the ego, free from titles, names, appearance, nationality. The soul finds itself as essence, and that alone is already a form of healing. As it grows stronger, the soul begins preparing for the next step. And no, this doesn't necessarily mean reincarnating immediately. There are many possibilities. Some souls choose to remain longer in the subtle planes, deepening their learning, helping other transitioning consciousnesses, developing in specific areas. They become agents of the spiritual realm, acting in missions of support, rescue, or inspiration among the living. Others, upon understanding what they still need to develop, decide to return to matter for a new incarnation. This decision is not made impulsively. It's a conscious process discussed with guides, adjusted with precision. Every detail of the future existence is planned. The family environment, challenges, gifts, the meetings and partings that will act as triggers for evolution. We talk more about how this decision is made in other videos. I recommend watching our playlist, Mysteries of Life. Some may be wondering, can the soul visit Earth? Yes, the soul can. And in fact, it does so more often than we imagine. This is not about reincarnation yet. We're talking here about spiritual visits. Moments when the soul, already disincinated, temporarily returns to Earth to observe, console, say goodbye, protect, or simply be near those it loves. And these visits happen in ways so subtle they often go unnoticed. Others are so strong there's no doubt he was here. There are different ways the soul can manifest among the living, and they vary depending on the spirit's evolution, its emotional connection to those here, and the purpose of the visit. Visits and dreams. This is one of the most common and most impactful forms. Anyone who has lost a loved one has probably experienced this. Dreaming of that person in such a vivid, lifelike way that upon waking it feels like the encounter truly happened, and often it really did. These are not ordinary dreams. They are astral plane meetings made possible by the release of the physical body during sleep. The soul of the incarnated person meets the soul of the disincarnated one. We exchange looks, hugs, words that were left unsaid in life, and we return with a lighter heart, as if something had been resolved. These dreams often have striking details, vivid colors, physical sensations, clear messages. We wake up and say, "It wasn't just a dream, I know they were here," and it's right to think that way. Subtle presences in daily life. Sometimes the soul doesn't manifest visually but leaves traces. A familiar scent that appears out of nowhere. A song that suddenly plays with lyrics that say it all. An object that falls to the floor without explanation. A gentle breeze during a moment of deep sadness. These are soft touches, signs that someone is near. These manifestations are more frequent when the soul senses that someone needs support. It comes, observes, comforts. It may not always interfere directly, but its presence alone brings comfort and strength. Spiritual apparitions. In rarer cases, usually involving mediums or naturally sensitive people, the soul may appear in an almost visible form. A silhouette, a light in the room, an image at the bedside, sometimes a voice. This is not common, and not every soul has permission or the ability to manifest this way. Protective interventions. There are situations in which the soul, especially if it already acts as a guide or protector, may directly intervene in the life of the incarnated person, preventing an accident, inspiring a decision, gently nudging a change of course. The person feels a premonition, a strong intuition, an invisible hand guiding them, and that's exactly what it is. How can we facilitate these encounters? Keeping the heart open is the first step. Being at peace with the departure, accepting the life cycle, and cultivating good feelings creates a safe bridge between the planes. Sincere prayers help, as does remembering the person with joy, speaking to them with affection, even without expecting an answer. But most importantly, don't wait obsessively. Spiritual visits don't happen on command. The soul appears when the time is right, and only when it doesn't harm them or those still here. That's why letting go is necessary. Loving without demanding. Letting the higher planes lead. And it's curious how even after someone leaves, we start to see life with new eyes. We feel more. We value more. We realize that everything that truly matters cannot be seen but felt, and that the vibration we live with influences not only our journey but also that of those we love here and on the other side. It's at this moment that many people awaken to something essential. The responsibility we have over our own energy. Every thought, every emotion, every act of gratitude or love, all of it builds a bridge between realities. It's no coincidence that so many elevated souls can visit their loved ones with ease. They vibrate high, and the living who keep their field clean, light, and conscious feel it because they are in tune. If you feel this call to reconnect, to transform your frequency and start manifesting a life more aligned with your essence, I invite you to the Quantum Thinking Challenge, a 21-day program where you'll practice gratitude every day. Reprogram your mind and unlock your full energetic potential. It's 3 weeks of conscious practice, vibrational elevation, and activation of your connection with what is most subtle and true. Many who participated report real changes happening in their lives, and maybe this is your time too. Access is in the first pinned comment. Throughout this first year after disincarnation, there are moments considered vibrational portals recognized in various traditions as instances of opening between worlds. The 7th day, as we've seen, marks the first major energetic release. The 40th day represents the end of the cycle of detachment from matter. And the first death anniversary is considered a complete closure, a kind of spiritual harvest of what was sown in life and in transition. When a year has passed since a soul's departure, something changes energetically and spiritually. It's as if a circle finally closes, allowing that consciousness to move forward more lightly, and those who remain on earth to transform the pain into serene memory. At this point, most souls are already positioned in their new stage, redirected to another plane, engaged in new spiritual missions, or perhaps preparing for a new earthly journey. For the living, the first death anniversary doesn't have to be marked only by longing. It can also be a celebration of the continuity of life in another form. A moment to look upward or inward and realize that everything, absolutely everything, is part of a greater cycle.